Are you sure you weren't teased? You know, where did that negativity, that sort of negative perception come from towards your own race? So to hear that I couldn't go because I was black was devastating.
Hey guys, good evening.
Hello.
And welcome to another episode of the Choi family. So we thought we would do a video on life in the UK when we were young.
Yes, I was born here in the UK and yeah, I was born here 40 years ago, so that was in 1980.
Whoa, 40 years sounds like a long
40 years,
time ago.
I know, it's crazy.
You're an oldie.
I can't even relate to it. So when I say it, if for example I'm reading a newspaper article and I see woman or man aged 40, I'm thinking, wow, that's a real growing person, that's, you know, a very mature person. But then I just don't relate that's, oh, I'm 42. So I think definitely what stood out to me was growing up, I went to a school that was the 2 doors away. It was the next but one from me. So I always have the memory of when I used to get myself, my mum used to get me ready and we'd wait for the school bell to ring and I'd leg it down to school, and I was always one of the latest people at school but lived the closest.
Wow.
It's really funny.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah, I knew who was going to say that. How did I knew he was going to say that. But yeah, and so I always remember that. The school was a lovely school, and I remember I had some amazing teachers. There was a teacher called Mr. Riley there. There was an amazing teacher called Mrs. Potts. She was the grandmother of the woman back in, I can't remember what year it was, but there was an attack at a primary school. This guy came to attack the children. He broke into the school
with a machete.
And there was another lady called Mrs. Potts who was my teacher back then. That was her granddaughter, and she was protecting and shielding the children with her body. She was using her body as a shield, and I just think, wow, what an absolute hero. So if you're watching Mrs. Potts, of course, yeah, she was injured. I can't remember how badly, but she was definitely injured. And yeah, he was attacking, he's trying to get to the kids, and he was mentally unstable, not using that as an excuse. But yeah, Mrs. Potts, I'm not joking, she was one of the loveliest teachers I've ever had. She was somebody that always made me feel confident in myself. She used to praise me when I did well, and she'd encourage me if I didn't do something right. I always remember that from when I was little, and that's always stuck with me, and it's made me realise how you might see children and think, you know, you can just say anything, you know, just kind of, how can I put this? You've just got to be careful. You've just got to realise how much children actually take in. Because as an example, Isabella, we've been learning Cantonese now over the lockdown period, and she'll be in the whilst we do it on video chat, and you'll see her. She's only 2 years old. She'll be, you know, sitting down sometimes and she'll be really good, and other times she'll be messing about. Sometimes she's like distracted, and to be honest with you, I didn't think she was taking much in. And when you ask her the questions, or Isaac would say, I'd say, oh, okay guys, what does, I don't know, a particular word, like for example strawberry, and Isaac would say seed or belly, is it seed or belly? But then yeah, that's it, exactly. And Bella would say, no Isaac, it's seed or belly. And she would correct him, and I'm like, wow, she's actually taking it in, and she's 2 years old. And so you should never underestimate what children actually take in, and also the impact. That's right. We have. Absolutely, it's our responsibility. You know, we have a huge responsibility, and that's why it's really important for us to instill confidence in them from a very young age, because it will, you know, you shape the child. I had some other teachers. I remember one teacher, I won't say her name, but she was awful. She was really a horrible teacher to me. She always used to single me out, and she would just be really snappy for no apparent reason. Do you know when you're almost feeling like they're not hearing what you're saying? It's almost like you're saying something and they're hearing something totally different. And even as a child, I was just baffled at how angry she was, and she was always snapping at me, and she would make me feel so nervous.
At all the kids, or just you?
She snapped at the kids, but she particularly liked to snap at me, I felt anyway. And yeah, it wasn't a very nice experience, and so I used to dread when I was in her class. I remember that, and I remember having an amazing school friend. I always tell you, and I
This
used
is
to
your
look
friend
for
that
her.
you lost?
Yeah.
I think you should tell the people.
My amazing friend who was at school, she was Australian, and her name was Jessica Lloyd. And if you're watching, Jessica, I would love to get in contact with you. I know it was many years ago.
Where did she move to?
She moved. No, I moved school.
Oh, you moved.
So she moved from Australia to the UK, and me and her were best of friends. We were super tight, and it was so sad. I'll never forget when I went to her house, and her mum was absolutely lovely. She welcomed me with open arms, and me and Jessica used to be playing in her bedroom. We had a great time. And I remember when I told Jessica that I was moving, because we were moving house, so I was moving schools as well. And obviously we were both really upset, but then she was like, oh, okay, I guess we shouldn't play with each other anymore then.
Aww.
And I was so sad. I was so sad. I remember that. But
so
yeah, please, Jessica.
if you know an Australian called Jessica Lloyd,
yes,
who
please.
lives or lived in Wolverhampton,
yes,
get in touch.
Please get in touch.
Reunite
let us know.
these two.
Absolutely.
So she
really
won't have to tell me this story every year.
No, so I've spoke about my very first memory. What was your very first memory? Because I suppose for you it was a bit different because you came from Holland, didn't you?
I was 4 or 5 when I came to England, and we moved to Birmingham because that's where my uncle had his business.
Okay.
So I remember the first school I went to was a school in Birmingham called St Mary's.
I remember you saying.
And I remember the first ever day I went there, I went into the assembly hall, and my parents were there just waiting at the door while I walked in.
Oh.
And then I sat down, and then I remember I just ran back out crying.
Oh,
So I think it was infant school. This was not primary school.
Oh.
But I was crying because from what I remember, I didn't know a single word of English.
Oh yeah.
So it was like a whole new environment.
That must have been quite scary because I remember you telling me this, and I always used to think, oh, you were really, really young, and you probably it wouldn't really affect you that much, or you wouldn't really have learnt much Dutch anyway, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, before I came
But
over.
then now having Isaac, you know, it's shocking even to see at 2 years old how much a child speaks, let alone 3, 4, 5.
I didn't speak any English.
That must have been so weird.
But yeah, what was really good was so the teachers paired me up with another Chinese boy.
Oh, that's nice.
A British one. His name was Wilson. And he looked after me. So that was my first memory of school.
I just remember you telling me I used to feed my sister crisps.
I used to feed. It makes it sound like I was at a farm feeding her.
No, but it's
through
cute.
the gate.
I think that's cute because can you imagine Isaac seeing Bella and then him feeding her crisp through the gate?
Yeah.
That just melts
Yeah.
my
So
heart.
what happened? I was in junior school. This was fast forward. I was in junior school, and my sister was in infant school, and it was separated by a gate. And lunchtime or break time, I used to give her crisps.
Oh, that's really kind. That's sweet.
And I remember having hay fever.
Oh, from a young
like
age.
really bad hay fever. And I remember my eyes were so itchy, and I was rubbing them, and they were just getting swollen. The more I rubbed it, the more swollen. It was like jellified. And, yeah.
Have you ever seen that, guys? Do you know the actual ball of the eye? I've never seen it in my entire life until I married Yitman. And he's rubbed his eyes, even now. I mean, he does, because of the kids, unfortunately, they have hay fever as well. And they've rubbed their eyes to this point as well. But it's just rubbing, and the actual ball of the eye expands, and it comes out further than the lid, the surrounding lid of the eye. So it's really alarming because I've seen it when the lids become swollen, but I've never seen the actual jelly part of the eyeball expand to like, it looks like egg white before it's whisked. It's just, it's horrible. It's really it's quite alarming vision. So what about, how was it for you being, were there many Chinese people in the school?
No, from what I remember, it was just me and this other Chinese kid, Wilson.
Okay, yeah.
And
what was your
it wasn't until secondary school when there were more. But there was only 2 more. I don't think that there's that many Chinese people in England.
Okay.
Are there? Not really.
Not where we've lived, not in sort of the West Midlands. The West Midlands are obviously Birmingham. There's Chinese Quarter, and you see a lot of Chinese people
it's
there.
'cause they're all
but they're more
concentrated.
more concentrated. And the same thing. There's parts in different areas, but overall, not a great lot. So I think in London you see quite a lot though, actually.
Yeah, but in Chinatown.
True, that's true.
In terms of being Chinese, I don't remember much of. I don't remember it being. I wasn't bullied for
Did you
being
feel
Chinese.
different? Did you notice that you were
Can't
not
remember.
white? Mm-hmm. That's
Maybe
that's
more-
a good thing.
Maybe more
think
so
as
when I was
children-
older.
Yeah.
More so when I was older, but
Mm-hmm.
not really when I was younger. Oh, I remember. So it's primary school. In the last year, I was made a house captain.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it was like a top position,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I was I a prefect? It was like being a prefect.
Ah, okay. Wow,
So
very
like,
good.
if kids were being naughty, like you can tell them off and stuff.
Oh, that's brilliant.
But then I remember I got told off for running.
And you were meant to be the one telling people off.
Yeah. So
That's
the
funny.
teacher called me running with some other kids, and then I was pretending that I was running to chase after the kids, and then
That's funny. So you pretended that you were running.
to chase the kid.
Oh my
But I got
gosh,
caught
that
anyway.
was quick. What about learning English? How did you learn English then? Because you didn't speak it when you started.
I don't remember that at all.
Wow.
No.
Does he remember anything? Should we just end the video now?
Okay.
So-
So how about you? Secondary
Yeah.
school.
So I'll go back to primary school
Okay.
because
Go back to primary
I'm
school.
going back. So basically, I think my memories were, so definitely what I said when I first started, then I moved school. Then I moved to a school and my mum, we weren't happy with the school at all. I wasn't happy there. I was there for about a month, I think, and I was really unhappy. I just didn't fit in.
No one spoke English.
Yeah, nobody spoke English. I think as a new person starting a school and mid-term, it's just difficult for you to fit in. And I think obviously I didn't give it too much time either because I left within a month. But then I just didn't feel happy there. So my mum moved me and then I went to another school and it was a really good school. It was a really good school and it was quite far out and I really admire my mum for sending me there, and she went to see the council and she really insisted that I move school, and
She sent you on a taxi
she
every
sent
day.
me in a taxi every single day to go to that school, and to think that I spent a few years there and she paid all that taxi fare.
She didn't
for me
even want
go
to let you go on a bus.
It was me and a couple of the kids that went in the taxi. But I do remember an incident. Actually, I think this was probably my first time noticing racism, and in terms of school. I mean, even with the teacher back at my other school that I first started at that was saying was really snappy, I didn't think at the time that it was because of the colour of my skin. I just thought, oh, she's mean, she's not nice. And it might have been just that she didn't like me. It doesn't mean it was that, but because I'm not always going to come to that conclusion every time. But with this person, Vicky, I remember she said she invited me to her birthday party and I was really excited to go. And then a few days after, she said to me, she says, oh, I'm not sure if you can come to my birthday party because my dad said he doesn't want any black people there. And I was like, she was so blatant, and as a child, I told you.
Oh.
Yeah, I've told you, yeah. And I was so shocked because I've never heard that before. And so I was like 8. And so for me, it was a really big shock because as far as I'm concerned, she was white, I was black, and she was just my best friend, and that was it. You know, I wasn't looking thinking, oh yeah, this is my white best friend, not at all. And she wasn't thinking this is my black best friend. But then I'm not sure how her dad knew that I was black. Maybe she mentioned it, or maybe he would have seen her actually picking me up. He would have seen me, wouldn't he, when he picked her up from school. So yeah, and when she told me that, I was so shocked. She said, I've been trying to tell him that you're really lovely, and I've been trying to convince him for us to come, but he said he doesn't want you there. And I was so distraught. I was gutted. I just couldn't believe that the only reason why I couldn't go to. I was gutted because I was looking forward to her birthday party. Like, if you have a best friend, it's a given that you're invited to their birthday party. So to hear that I couldn't go because I was black was devastating.
Did anyone Did your mum speak to her dad in the end or anything? Or
No,
nothing came
no,
of it?
no. And I remember now, I did go to her party, and I'm sure my mum would have stayed there. I don't remember, but I know my mum. One of her first jobs was like a social worker after she had me. So she saw a lot, especially because she worked in the children's sector, and then she moved on. She did counselling, and then she did lecturing at uni and all sorts. But you know, that role for her really opened her eyes up to so many things. So like child abuse and lots of different things. So she was very protective of me. So I remember even growing up, my mum would never let me sleep over at anybody's house unless it was somebody that she was really good friends with. And she'd known them for years and what have you. But yeah, that was a devastating experience for me. I remember going to the party and feeling really I was there, but I just felt really uncomfortable. I just remember
So
that.
this was the same party. So you did.
So I did go.
You did go.
So she did that. She'd convinced her dad, and I did go. And obviously my mum was there.
Do you remember the dad?
I remember the dad, yeah, and he was actually okay with me. He wasn't rude. He didn't make me feel uncomfortable. So she did a good job at whatever she said to him. But at the same time, I just was very conscious of the fact I was black. Another experience, I've got lots of experience. I remember I had a teacher called Mr. Smith, and I remember a really good experience. This was one of my first encounters with, like, I'm a Christian, for those that don't know, and one of my first experiences, like, of experiencing, like, God and the Holy Spirit at school. And I remember, and that was merciful, that was of him, because basically we were told that our teacher, Mr. Smith, was really strict. He wasn't mean, to be honest. I thought it was like a big gentle giant, but then his thing was that it was a rumour that went round that if you did anything wrong, you'd have to write the entire Bible out from start to finish. And of course at 8 and 9 you believed it, and so I believed it, and I was really scared of him, so I didn't want to do anything wrong. But then I was a bit of a daydreamer at school, and I remember we were reading a book together and we all had to take it in turns, and I was somewhere else because I was daydreaming, and I was absolutely as I said, I was somewhere else. We were going through this book, and one person would read a part, another person would read a part, and I was just staring out the window for absolutely ages. And it came to my turn, and I was probably on page 2, and he said, Adelaine, it's your turn now. And my heart sank, and I felt sick and scared, because I thought, I have no clue where we are in this book. I haven't been listening. And he looked at me like, I know you're going to mess this up because you haven't been listening the whole time. So I remember praying really quickly, and I was like, please God, please show me where they are, please show me where they are. And he said to me, do you know where we are in the book? And out popped my mouth, yes, I do. In my mind, I'm still thinking, oh my gosh, I have no clue. And I turned the pages over, maybe about 7-8 pages, and I pointed to a part in the book, and then I said, there it is. And he went, oh, yes, continue. And I was like, I could not believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, that was God. I just knew it was God, and it was God's favour. I didn't have to write the entire Bible out, even though I probably wouldn't have had to. That would have been a big ask for anybody, even now. So another incident I remember was I moved on from Mr. Smith's class to another teacher's class, who I won't say because he wasn't a very nice teacher. So there was myself, there were 3 other black kids there, and there was a Filipino guy, and everyone else there were white. So I think it was something that I didn't notice, to be honest. I didn't think, oh my gosh, I'm one of very few black people. I was like one of the only black people in my class.
I didn't have it. We didn't have any black people in our school, in secondary school.
Oh, in your secondary school?
Yeah, in the secondary school.
Are you serious?
And then at the most there was 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. That's because that's a different picture for mine at secondary school, which I'll come into. So at so in this person's class, he was a really angry teacher. That was when I really saw great anger in somebody. He was a tall guy. He was very intimidating. I was scared of him. And
some people just shouldn't be teachers, should they?
Honestly, Yeah, and then basically, I don't remember, he just was always just shouting at me. Just, I could do the slightest thing, like giggle. He'd be shouting at me like he wanted to punch me in the face. And I remember one day it came to a head, and I don't remember what I did. I was a really, genuinely, I'm not just saying this, but I was a well-behaved child, and my parents can vouch for that. So, you know, it just baffled me why he was always so angry towards me. And then one day he actually pushed me to the floor, and I fell to the ground in class. And yeah, I was really, really upset, obviously, and I went back home and told my mum. And my mum obviously went to the school, and she was absolutely infuriated. And yeah, she spoke to them, to the head and what have you. And yeah, honestly, after that, he was the nicest teacher ever. He was as nice as pie, to the weirdest. It was just, obviously he had the risk of being sacked, so he couldn't have been lovelier, and it just felt really, obviously, very fake and strange. But I was happy, because when you're a child, you just want to be in a class that you have a nice teacher, don't you? You don't want to be feeling scared or fearful. So that, for me, kind of, those sort of things as a child, it kind of shapes your world. It does. It shapes your world, and it shapes your view of the world and how things might be for you. Because already at primary school, I had a couple of incidents where I was treated differently because of the colour of my skin. And, you know, maybe he pushed me over because he just was so angry and what have you, but he was always angry at me, and he pushed me over, and I was the only black kid in the class. So it kind of, you put two and two together, and some things are coincidental, but I didn't really think that. And yeah, and the other one was a blatant, because she told me exactly what it was. So that was unfortunate, to be honest with you. But secondary school, what was that like for you?
Secondary school, I was one of 3 Chinese kids in the year, or in the school. I think it was in the whole school and in the whole year. And it was alright. There wasn't really much racism, apart from one incident when a guy called me a chink.
Some people seem to think that word's still okay. I hear it spoken about. I hear that word's just fly out of people's mouth. I've heard it over the years from when I was younger.
You thought it wasn't a racist word.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a nice word. I didn't think it was a nice word. I didn't think it's a term that you use. My mum's always been very much like, you know, you don't say that, and you don't say that, and you don't say that, derogatory terms. But then, to be honest with you, I didn't really think it was as bad as you told me when I was growing up. But then I knew it wasn't a nice word. I didn't think it was as bad. I didn't think it was as bad, for example, of the N word, or, you know, the P word towards.
I think it
is. It absolutely is. Oh yeah, 100%. I know that now.
But the thing is, in America though, I don't think it is, because, as an example, like, there was a singer called Chinky Brown Eyes. Yeah. And I'm thinking, hold up.
Yeah, like what? Or even when people try to sound like they're speaking Cantonese, Chinese, and they take the mick, even that is offensive, isn't it? What do you think?
I find it really. I don't get offended that easily, but at the same time, I do with certain things. Like,
because
most things don't get to
offended.
Me. But then when people like pretend to speak Chinese and do the accent and stuff. Yeah. It really gets to me. Yeah. Because I'm thinking, we don't talk like that. Yeah. Yeah. But I think growing up, I don't know. Growing up, I think because there weren't that many Chinese people around, I did have some insecurities about that. Like I was telling you that. So there's this Chinese supermarket, and then they have their Chinese supermarket bags. And my mum sometimes would give me like a bag to put food in to take to school, for example. Yeah. And then I'd be embarrassed to take it to school. I remember you were saying, yeah. And I don't know if other people get that. Do you get that? Like. I don't know. I can't. Would you carry a home from home bag? Yeah. Why not? Definitely. In fact, I don't know if I'd still do it. But really? Then, what do you mean? You wouldn't carry a wingit bag where to work? I don't know. I'd need to do it to know whether I'd still
how
feel
does
that
it
way.
make you feel? Does it make you feel like
Sometimes I feel like
there's a Chinese man carrying a Chinese bag?
yeah, the same way as I go to a supermarket sometimes, and sometimes like I'd feel for like a Chinese Chinese food from the supermarket, and I would think if I take this and put it through the till person's gonna think, there's a Chinese
guy buying
Chinese food.
Babe, come on, no, just
and
like
I think talking about this now, it's kind of like
talk, therapy.
Yeah, this is therapy.
This is therapy,
Just bringing
guys.
stuff back.
Yeah. But then the thing is, go on.
And chicken wings. So when I was younger, like we ate chicken wings as a family, and I thought that it was a Chinese thing, like Chinese people eat chicken wings.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think I was kind of embarrassed to bring chicken wings into school or
for lunch or something.
For lunch or something like that.
Yeah.
If
I think it's only become more mainstream in sort of Western society more recently, hasn't
Yes,
it?
probably since
KFC,
started
hot wings, and you've got Jack Daniel's wings at TGI's and stuff like that. But then, to be honest with you, I love wings. I still do.
Did you grow up eating wings?
I grew up eating wings, of course. Yeah.
So it's weird,
Yeah,
and even rice, even rice.
Even rice. Babe, rice is rice. Yeah.
I thought, growing up, maybe like I didn't go out and eat like Asian rices and Caribbean rices and stuff like that. And I thought it's just Chinese people that eat rice and chicken wings, and here I am eating rice. Like the stereotypical thing of like a rice bowl. And
So are you sure you weren't teased? Because it sounds to me that you were probably teased, and you were made to, because where did that negativity, that sort of negative perception come from towards your own race?
I don't remember.
Do you know what I mean? It's not like you felt like, oh, I don't like being Chinese, but then it sounds to me like you felt that people look down upon Chinese people or upon Chinese culture, upon what they're eating, the way that just there's a mistake somehow.
I genuinely can't remember.
It's got to, and do you know what? It's probably during that blank phase that you don't remember in primary school, when you didn't really speak English, and you don't remember any of it.
And that's when all the bullying happened.
He's like, yeah, it was fine. There were no low points or high points, and actually, it was all a low. And it's not funny, but I'm saying just in the sense that you can't remember any of it, and just it's got to be your product of your environment, so it has to have come from somewhere. It doesn't just happen like that. You're not just going to, even for me at school, I was like one of the only black people there, and I didn't realise. I mean, my mum's always spoke, and my dad spoke to me about racism and that sort of thing, just for awareness. But then not from a perception of like victim, not to be a victim, not at all. But then I think that to be playing with my friends and all of them were white, it's not something that I thought, oh, I'm the only black one. It was only when, going back again, when they used to bring things up. Another thing, they used to like my skin, for example. I've always had, you'll see on my hands, I've got very old looking hands, and I always have done since a child. It's not because I've turned 40. I've had it since I was a child. And because like on your hands you've got lines and stuff, and I think on paler skin it's not as visible. So they always used to do that about my hands and my knees and say, oh, look at the lines, they're really cool on your hands. And I looked at their hands and knees and I thought, wow, it's not visible on theirs. And like they used to be touching my hair and say, wow, your hair's really different. Why does it feel like that? And just things like that, and it just kind of makes you aware, okay, I'm different. Okay, I'm different. Okay, I'm different. And it's only because of curiosity as a child. They weren't being mean to me, but that it's just because of curiosity. And so, like that, it makes you think, I'm different. And so there must have been something that made you feel that maybe it was the fact that you couldn't speak English straight away. You're different when you can't speak the language.
But hearing you say that, it makes me think how important it is to point out these differences to our kids now and let them know how good those differences are.
Yeah, definitely. Before
someone else tells them and they think that it's a bad thing. Do you know
Absolutely, what I mean? It's so important. The thing is, for us as parents, we've always, since since the kids have been able to understand, we've always emphasised and really reinforced to them how beautiful their hair is, you know, how beautiful their curls are, and curls rock, and, you know, the amount of styles that you can do with it. We've always even on their complexion, we always say, oh, your complexion is beautiful.
And not to make them not to make them feel like they're better than anyone else.
Never.
But they are not less than
Absolutely,
anyone else.
yeah.
And that's the important part.
100%, yeah, definitely. And even in the whole sense of like colorism as well, I always ensure, like when Isaac gets a tan and what have you, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, Isaac, I love your tan, you know. And when I get a tan, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm tanned, I love it, I absolutely love it. Because, you know, in some cultures it's perceived that getting darker isn't a beautiful thing. But even for me, as dark as I am, I love getting a tan. So yeah, that's something that we've always reinforced. So Isaac is very much proud of who he is, and that makes us proud, doesn't it? Yeah, and he mentions certain things, and I think that in my heart just makes me think, oh, that's one hurdle that, you know, that we don't have to be concerned. It's not something we have to be concerned about, and we just have to continue to sort of encourage him and affirm who he is as a person. And as he said, not to say that he's better than anybody, but that nobody's better than him at all. So for secondary school, I've had some great experiences, to be honest with you. I've had some negative as well. One of the highlights at school definitely is meeting one of my best friends, Kerry. And she's still one of my best friends, and she is godparent to our son Isaac. So yeah, that's been definitely a highlight for me. Yeah, she's an amazing friend, and I think that definitely it's amazing how we can see that there was stuff that we were going through individually at school, and just it's almost like we laughed our way through school. We were always giggling. I mean, the giggling got us into trouble quite a few times. And yeah, it was really interesting. Speaking of the giggling, I do remember one situation that was one that was really funny. We actually met and we became friends when we were in class, and then I think I was laughing and I actually fell off my chair, fell backwards off my chair, and then she was laughing her head off, and then we got talking and we became really good friends ever since. But another incident I remember was it was myself and her again. We were talking, we were just having a little chuckle in class, but it was both of us, and then I was the one that was sort of singled out and told to leave the classroom, and I was put on detention. I was like, gosh, that's harsh. It could have been whatever, for whatever reason, but I think it happened twice, and yeah, it just kind of made me think, was that necessary for giggling? I didn't think that you could, you know, have a detention for giggling. And I remember I really liked my RE teacher, and it was a really nice guy, but then I'll say he wasn't really that popular, to be honest with you, because he was very strict, but then he was absolutely perfectly fine with me. And I remember well, I wouldn't say my friend, but somebody in the class, she called me a racist name. She called me a black something, just because she felt like it. And I told him what she said, and he was so blasé about the whole thing, and he was like, oh, you don't say things like that, and that was it. And so it might not sound like, you know, you're probably thinking, what do you expect him to do? Because maybe it was his first time experiencing it, and I understand, you know, as a teacher, and, you know, if they need to, basically, for myself, I feel like you need to have things in place. So if there's any racial abuse, if there's any form of abuse, there needs to be a process, and there needs to be certain specific things that are said to the pupil. And the fact that I got kicked out of class and on detention for giggling, yet she just got told, don't say things like that. You know, it just seemed to me as clear racial bias.
Was it two different teachers?
It was two different teachers, but then for me, when you're in any sort of institution, there needs to be a standard. And for me, you know, giggling clearly just doesn't warrant you to go in detention. For me, I wasn't like laughing my head off and being ha ha ha. I'm not that type of character. If you can see me on here, you've seen I'm not that. That's not my character. I like a laugh, but you know, we'll just be giggling, like, you know. but not like disruptive to the class. And yeah, so that for me, it really stood out to me, because I thought, wow, yes, I know, yeah, it was 2 different teachers, so it's not like I'm comparing the teacher on both counts, but just the fact that you're teaching at that school, there were a set of rules, set of regulations, and surely for racial abuse, you know, surely you must get more than just a little, not even a slap on, just a little, you know, by the way, don't say that. It's like, come on, I think you need a bit more than that. So yeah, there, I could see that. But saying that, I had some great experiences there. I've had some great times that's growing up in secondary school. Had a lot of great memories in secondary school, to be honest with you. So
tell me about that teacher that you told me had a word with you and was really inspiring and said, you know, like something about.
Oh, that was in university.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, that was Mr. Phillips. He was a New Zealand guy, and he was the joy of my education, honestly. He stood out like a star. Yeah, I remember that he just decided, it's like he just wanted to affirm me at university, and he would come over to me and he would just say, he'd say, you are beautiful. He said, you know, you just stand out and you are beautiful. And he would always, and not in a pervy way, not at all. He was really trying, and he would say, you know, he would say, I just want you to know that that there are many successful black women in the UK and in the world, and you can be one of them. And you know, he used to just really just push me and encourage me, and if there's anything that you need, and his support. And he genuinely was not a perv at all, because I'm sure people, because I can imagine you thinking that, but not at all, because he was really just a ray of light, and he was like that with everybody in different aspects. So he was really a motivating, affirming, encouraging type teacher who loved his job. He was passionate, and he wanted to just sort of, I think when your confidence is boosted, you achieve more. Because when you have that belief in yourself that, you know what, I can do it, I can do this, and even though in front of you might think, gosh, it looks huge, it's not as overwhelming, because you've got that self-belief, and that alone helps you just overcome that first hurdle of just self-doubt. Yeah guys, so I think that this was a conversation that we just decided to talk about now, and it's not something that we're just trying to focus on the negatives that we've had, because we've had
positives
a lot of positives. Yeah, we've had a lot of positives, and we've had some negatives, but we don't focus and emphasize. We don't focus on the negatives, but then at the same time, they're very important, because obviously in modern society we're still seeing the same race. We're still seeing racism and racial bias in modern society now. So I think it's just something that we just wanted to sort of reflect on and see if there have been any improvements, and it sort of helps us as parents as well.
Yeah, and not just that, but also like our interaction with people who are younger than us, or people who can be influenced by us.
Absolutely.
I think it's important how we act towards other people. We don't always get it right, but it's important to just try and learn from our mistakes and improve on them.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
You can see how what we all go through when we're younger has an impact on you know, life as an adult.
Yeah.
So I guess our question to you guys would be, what experiences have you guys had when you were younger, both positive and negative?
Yeah, definitely both positive as well.
How have they, you know, affected you now in later life as an adult? And share with us down in the comments.
Yes, please.
You know, we'd love to hear from you, and you know, just to discuss these things in the comments down below.
So as always, please don't forget to like, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and also please don't forget to comment as well. It really does help us on our YouTube journey, so we really appreciate every bit of support, and we love the interaction. We love reading your comments. As I always say, we don't always get back to it straight away, especially with how busy it is at the moment with the whole homeschooling and life, and trying to, you know, to kind of balance everything, but we will come back to you. So thank you so much again for watching, and have a great day.
Take care guys, bye.
Peace out.
Peace out.